Hey Sea Kings, Miss Nemeth here. These notes are from section 5.3 and 5.4, though all of these examples come from 5.4 if you want to refer back to your textbook. The topic is graphing and solving radical equations and inequalities. The essential questions are, number 1, how do I graph a square root function? Number 2, how do I graph a cube root function? Number 3, how do I solve radical equations? And number 4, how do I solve radical inequalities? So those are the questions that I'll be looking forward to seeing your answers in the summary. The first example, we're going to graph and solve this. So what they gave us is 2 times the square root of x plus 2 equals 8. So we're going to break this into two pieces. So y1 we'll say is the left side of the equation, and y2 will be the right side. So the first thing we want to do is find the x-intercept. So I'm going to put this in the margin. Close your eyes. Open your eyes. We'll find the x-intercept. That means we'll let y equal 0. The second step, we'll find the y-intercept, which to do that, we'll let x equal 0. The third step, we'll find one more point than the index. So in our example here, the index is an invisible 2 because it's a square root, and so we'll find 3 points. So we have a good idea of what the curve looks like. And how will we choose that point depends on what we get for step 1 and step 2. So here's our first point. Finding the x-intercept means that y equals 0. I'm going to label this a little bit better. So the x-intercept, that means y equals 0. So y1 will be 0 here. We'll have 2 times the square root of x plus 2. Both sides will divide by this coefficient of 2. That gives us 0 equals the square root of x plus 2. Now to get rid of a square root, we will square both sides. So 0 squared is just 0. On the right side, we're left with x plus 2. Just kidding, x plus 2. When we subtract 2 from both sides, we get that x equals negative 2. And that gives us the point negative 2 comma 0. Where did the 0 came from? Well, we plugged in 0 for y earlier, and so that's why we have this 0 in the y coordinate here on the bottom. Okay, our next step, we're going to find the y-intercept. That means we let x equal 0. So we have y1 equals 2 times the square root of 0 plus 2. That is 2 times the square root of 2. And getting out my calculator, 2 times the square root of 2. That gives me 2.82 and some other stuff. We're going to use 2.8 because our graph isn't going to have that much detail on it. We'll say approximately 2.8. So this gives us the point 0 comma 2.8. Again, the 0 comes from letting x equal 0 as our premise for finding this point. Okay, so now needing to find one more point, we make a table. I'm going to make it horizontally so we have room to put the graph down here. So let's see, we got negative 2 comma 0, that was our x-intercept. We got 0, 2.8. So it looks like if we use positive 2, that might also work out well. So plugging in, we'll have y1 equals 2 times the square root of 2 plus 2. And this is a lot of 2's. Oh, sorry. Close your eyes. Open your eyes. Okay, so this 2 came from the 2 we're plugging in here. So this will simplify to y1 equals 2 times the square root of 4, which is going to be 2 times 2, and that's 4. So there's our third point. So Getting out our graph. Put this exactly where we want it, or close enough to where we want it. Okay, so we have our second function is y2 equals 8, and we need to make sure that we get up to 8. So I think I'm going to go by 2's on the x-axis and 2's on the y-axis. So I'm going to mark that. We found when x is -2, y is 0, so that's a point right here. These are coming from our table, that's where I'm getting these points. We said 0 and 2.8, so that's going to be right around just shy of halfway between our 2 and our 4 on the y-axis. And we also found 2 up at 4, which is here. So notice by going by 2's, we've kind of squished this graph a little bit. But the curve is something like this. So it starts here. Definitely do not draw an arrow at this point. That would be incorrect. And it continues off this way. Now we also have y equals 8 as our second function, so 2, 4, 6, 8. That's going to be a graph, a line that goes through this point right here. Now, our graph is a little bit small, so we're not exactly sure. This is curve y1, this is y2. So we're not exactly sure where these things meet. So let's actually solve the equation. So for the solving part, we have 2 times the square root of x plus 2, that equals 8. Now, we need to get the x by itself. I'm going to divide both sides by this coefficient. I have the square root of x plus 2 equals 4. If I square the left side and the right side, I'll have x plus 2 equals 16. Now, just for clarity, this exponent and the radical cancel. That's why I'm left with just the radicand. When I subtract 2 from both sides, I get what? X equals 14. So this is the solution of the equation. And does it make sense? If we plug 14 in over here, what do we get? So let's go back to our table and our function and see if we have y1 equals 2 times 14 plus 2, does that actually equal 8? Dun, dun, dun. It does equal 8. So if we were to solve this graphically, the answer is going to be 14 when 14, 8 would be the point where these would cross, and 14 is the solution to the equation.